as we shall explain today, we shall demonstrate to you that there have been a number of independent power producers who have come, invested in their money, and they are doing very well. So we are going to tell you about how they are performing. That's the generation element. Then now I go to the transmission element. That the pylons, we only have one company that is doing so, and that is Uganda Electricity Transmission Company. It's responsible for those pylons and also those huge substations. However, this role has been also liberalized or has been opened up to the private sector. So going forward, you will see individual or independent transmission companies coming in to also play that role. But as it is now, it is only Uganda Electricity Transmission Company. And this company is owned by the government of Uganda 100%. Responsible for transmitting, importing, and exporting. And this one we shall explain later in our presentation. Then we go to the distribution segment. In the distribution segment, we do have Uganda Electricity Distribution Company Limited. This is also a government of Uganda-owned company responsible for distribution of electricity in areas that are outside the commercial areas, the concessions of Umeme. Then, of course, you know Umeme. Umeme is a private-owned company that is dominant in the distribution sector or segment. We have also had other distribution companies that now, with the reforms, they are no longer doing the business. But we have had so many. We have had CREX, I think in the video you had. CREX is Chenjajo Rural Electrification Cooperative. We have had PACMEX, Pade Abim Electricity Cooperative Company, and others, BEX. So all these were private-owned companies, maybe by cooperative societies, but they have been doing the distribution work. We do have off-grids. Well, there are some areas that are really isolated off the grid. So what government of Uganda has done is to ensure that these areas we get an independent power producer who will also distribute electricity in that area. For example, in Kalangala, we have the Kalangala Infrastructure Services, which is doing so, and also in other islands. So these are remote areas, but they are operated by companies. Now, the bit and where we are involved, especially the media, are the consumers. You know, you can have a private investments, government coming in, and you know, investors, their objectives are totally different. But the consumers, we need services available at affordable price, reliable. So who is there to protect this consumer? It's the Electricity Authority. So in other words, when you see this structure, you see the Electricity Authority on top there, but it has the denominators, we have the companies below. Meaning that we do regulate, we do supervise, we do monitor the performance of these companies for the sake of the consumer. Is that clear? We do regulate, we monitor, we supervise these companies so that they can provide the services to our people at affordable price to our consumers. Therefore, if I give an analogy, we are like a team. Man U, Arsenal, playing. We are the referees. We are in there. Our work is to ensure that the game is played fairly. We want to ensure that the consumer gets what he wants, but also the investor also gets what he wants. So we have to make sure that we bring together these stakeholder interests, we manage them appropriately. So our work is to supervise, regulate, and monitor the electricity supply sector. Is that clear? Now, what I've been mentioning was more or less of the first generation reforms. In the first generation reforms, the first thing was to enact the Electricity Act of 1999. That act is the law that has been managing the electricity supply industry. And the structure that I have already presented is a consequence of the law that took place. And in the reforms, what did they want to manage at that point in time? There were challenges and constraints. One, we had high system losses. At that time, because we used to have only one company known as Uganda Electricity Board, UEB, the electricity losses were high, and the investments in that sector was really very low. Therefore, the electricity sector performance was very poor. So the Act ensured that it would like to address that. There was no productivity of UEB and its inability to service its debts. UEB being a company of government of Uganda, really its capacity to collect debts was really very low and desirable. Therefore, there was a need to ensure that we increase the ability of collecting debts. And we are going to demonstrate to you in our subsequent presentation. Poor quality and inadequate supply. At that time, Uganda was experiencing unreliability of electricity. Why? Because investments were not there in the network. We could afford to stay 14 days without electricity. Areas power was being rationed. So like today here, you could find in this division here, power is not there, but on the other side, you see power. It was a deliberate process because power wasn't enough. The demand outstripped supply, and therefore, there was shortfall, and it called for load shedding. Today, we can afford to complain even if power went off for 30 minutes. If power went off now, you could see our reaction. Why? Because we have raised that standard. The expectations are high. Extreme low collection rate. The electricity supply industry needs money, needs funds to ensure that it runs because we are operating a live network. A live network means you cannot afford to leave things to chances. So if a transformer bursts somewhere, it means that you should be able to mobilize funds so that that network is back, because electricity does not stop. It's a live network. Therefore, we needed to make sure that financially the electricity sector is viable or sustainable. Demand, generation capacity, load shedding, that one I've explained. Now, what were the main objectives of the reforms at that time? One, to improve industrial efficiency. Industrial efficiency means reliability, access, affordability. We need to ensure that when power goes off, you can easily call. Someone can respond to you quickly, not waiting, saying that let's wait approvals from Kampala. So we need to improve our efficiency. If you ask our fathers, they will tell you how long it could take them to get a response from UEB. However, today, once you have any issue, you can easily call to the distributor and your issues are resolved. Increase access rate. At that time, access rate stood at only 5% at most, and only in urban and peri-urban areas. 5% of the population had access to electricity, and these were people who were privileged. Now, the reforms aimed at ensuring that this electricity is extended to everyone, especially rural areas. So, at that time, access to electricity was only at 5%. But today, we are going to demonstrate to you that this access rate has really gone up. The interventions that government of Uganda has put in place has increased this access rate. Decrease of fiscal burden. At that time, electricity sector was subsidized. The government of Uganda would get money meant for the other sectors and could bring this money to finance the electricity subsector. What would this mean? This would mean that the other sector was sacrificed. But today, we can speak with authority and our shoulders high that the electricity subsector today is sustainable, financially sustainable. Whatever is there, we pay for it. We don't need subsidies. subsidies were taken away. That is one of the achievements. Then today, the other issue was attract private capital. As I explained, at that time, before the Electricity Act reform, we had only one company. That was Uganda Electricity Board, UEB, which was doing generation, transmission, and distribution. But today, we are going to demonstrate to you that we have had private players who have come in, brought in their money, and they are working. Increase export potential of indigenous resources. So, that is what the objectives of the first reform are. And so, after getting those objectives, in order for you to assess whether the reforms were effective or not, you have to evaluate depending on the objectives. I have already mentioned the objectives. Now, did we achieve those objectives or not? Here is the answer. Here is the answer. I mentioned that one of the objectives was to increase power capacity. At that time, Uganda's electricity capacity was around 100, slightly over 100 megawatts at that time. Actually, the best 395 power generation capacity. But today, as we speak today, we are proud that we are producing over 2,000 megawatts. At that time, we are producing, our average production capacity was around 395. Today, as we speak, we have a capacity of over 2,000 megawatts. That is an achievement. Peak demand. The demand for power at that time before the reforms was 257. Today our peak demand is over 1,000 megawatts. Peak demand is that time where people need power. Previously, people needed power, there was suppressed demand of course, but also demand at that time, electricity utilization was not so much. But today, we are saying that now the demand for power has really gone up. The electricity access, I mentioned earlier on, prior to the reforms, Uganda's electricity access was just only 5%. And the majority of areas, this covered urban and peri-urban areas. Rural areas, we could not see power. For me, I come in an area very, very far. But you could just see lines just going to our DCs, district commissioners at that time. But now today, we have power. Then the distribution losses. We are going to tell you what distribution losses, the impact of distribution losses, and how much it takes for you to reduce a 1% reduction of electricity distribution losses. But at that time, it was only 36%. 36%. So it's like when you have a jerry can, you put water there, you are taking it, let's say, to the market, but as you go to the market, the water keeps on leaking. By the time you reach the market, you find that you just have, from the 20-liter jerry can, you are having only 5 liters. That is a loss, wastage. So at that time, we are producing 395 megawatts, that was the capacity, but the losses were 36%. Today, we can say that these losses have reduced to 17.3%. That is an achievement. And we are going to demonstrate to you how much the effort put in place to reduce 1% loss. You will see the impact. Revenue collection. At that time, revenue collection was only 80%, meaning that not all revenue was collected from the customers or from the consumers. But today, we are proud to inform you that we are collecting over 99%, coming to 100%. Why? Because of the systems being put in place. This is an achievement. Revenue collection, distribution losses, collection rate 51.2%, Now today we talk about 82.50. Today, we are happy that we have diversified our energy mix. At that time, we only had, we had major dominant electricity source was hydropower, which was only at Owen Falls Dam. Today, we are happy that we have had a number of generation facilities coming up across the Nile, but also we have renewable energy technologies put in place. I mentioned that we have solar. Solar is in place, solar technology. We have a number of solar plants peppered across this country. We do also have cogeneration plants or bagasse plants. These are plants that produce electricity using sugarcane wastes. So this is another achievement this country has. So if anything happens to the hydrology means our climate and water, it means that we do have other sources. So in terms of renewable energy, this country has progressed. Enabling environment for private sector investments. We have seen that there's a the growth in independent power producers. We have seen the private sector coming in, both from the generation to the distribution. And now we are opening up the transmission segment. So, you know, in business, if that business is not attractive, you will not have so many players. But if the business is attractive, so many players come in. Today, Uganda electricity sector is so attractive that so many investors are willing to come and put in their money so that they can participate in the sector. That one there, it is an achievement. Customer base, we have seen that our customer base has also grown. The way we measure our customer base is not like the telephone industry, the telecom industry. We do not measure per customer, but we measure according to households. Now, from the recent statistics, Uganda has close to over 8 million households. 80 million households. But today, we are happy to report that at least over 200 million households, these are customers of electricity we have connected today from the previous one. So if you juxtapose this, you can see that the supply industry has really achieved. You can proceed. So this is what we mentioned, the installed capacity. If you look at this graph, you will see that before this graph, you see that the capacity has been increasing gradually. Why? Because of the deliberate government policy. Policy whereby government is attracting investors, but also we have a robust regulatory framework whereby the Electricity Regulatory Authority is responsible for some of this regulatory framework. So if you have a robust regulatory framework, this will help you attract the investors. So you can see that investments, the capacity has been going up because there has been increased investments and increased flow of private sector. Now, we have mentioned about the macro level, the bigger picture. But we, from the people of the North, what is our contribution to that mix? I think we as journalists, that's what we want. Because, you know, proximity is one of our news values, isn't it? So, we at LIRA, what is our contribution in that pie? Here we are. We have operational plans. You have heard the recently commissioned Karuma hydropower project. It's a 600 megawatt hydropower project, the biggest in this country. It is here in the north. So today, I want you, when you go out there, you say, people in the north, we are contributing to the growth of the Uganda's electricity supply industry. We have Aswa 1 and Aswa 2, 87 megawatts. This is, on the other side, Mr. He will come and explain where it is. You can explain to them where it is.
Actual 1 and 2 hydropower plants are located on Aswa River, but specifically at the border between Gulu and Pader. But the structures are largely found on the Pader side in Angagura sub-county. So its electricity is wired through Agago substation, which is in Angagura, and then to Gulu substation. Then, now from Gulu, of course, the consumption in Gulu is about 8 megawatts. So there's an extra of about 78 megawatts, which then is transmitted to Lango sub-region, West Nile, but also the excess goes all the way up to Eastern region. Yeah.
That is proximity for you. Now, I want to tell you that the catchment area, you see, while these plants are there, I want to say that even this region, Amolata, are here, you contribute because water coming from this area, the ecosystem is together. And this is why we are saying that we need to protect the environment, because the water feeding that river, some of these water catchment areas are here. Therefore, as we talk to our people, we need to tell them the need for us to protect our environment, because the environment is interconnected. If this water does not go there, those power plants will not be working. Therefore, there's a need for us to ensure that we protect, because water here goes there to feed and support that power plant. Then we also have Nyagak. This is in West Nile, 3.5 megawatt. And Nyagak, apart from Karuma, these power plants are operated by the private sector. So this demonstrates to you what I have told you, that the private sector is coming in. If the private sector was not there, government of Uganda would have issues. But the private sector has come in, and now we have those ones. Now, we also have yet to be commissioned plants, but also located where? In northern Uganda. Nyagak 3, 6.6 megawatt is coming. It's also in West Nile. We have Ituka solar power plant. It's also there in Madiokole. It's also coming online. Hopefully by next year it will be running. Then we have those other potentials on River Nile. Ayago. You will be told that Ayago has the potential to be the biggest hydropower plant in Uganda. It is estimated that this plant will be generating over 800 megawatts across, and it's just across the River Nile. We have Oriang, Uhuru, Kiba. All these hydropower sites are along the River Nile. So you can see how you people in the north, how you are connected to Uganda's electricity growth. That's why we wanted to see that we talk to you so that you treat electricity issues as part and parcel of this economy. Now, one of the issues that these areas have been facing is reliability issues. What have we done to ensure that these issues are addressed? May I invite my engineer here to come and explain? Because as he will explain to you, Northern Uganda has one of the robust network in this country. Robust, as he's going to explain. That in case one side has issues, the other side will supply.
Number one, in the first picture we said there's generation, transmission and distribution. But then Lango, as in Lango right now, doesn't have a power plant located in Lango exactly. That means that we need a robust transmission network to bring power from where it's generated, such that at any given time we have supply here in Lango. So if we look at Lira, when you go to Juba Road, there's a substation on Juba Road. We know about that substation. Now, that substation, for a long time, used to receive electricity supply only from the eastern side. Electricity would have to move from Jinja all the way to Tororo. Then from Tororo it comes through Mbale, Opuyo in Soroti to Lira. That was the only option we had. And that meant that any problem anywhere on this line, Lira would be off. And the entire north was off. Because Lira substation was the only transmission substation in the north at the time. So what happened is government started to intervene. And the first intervention was to upgrade the wooden network. As we all remember, the line running on the Eastern Road from Lira Soroti to Tororo was wooden. Now when you drive on that road, you will see metallic pylons. That was the first project government implemented. And the aim of that project was to ensure that we improve the capacity to deliver electricity. The original line could only carry 63 megawatts. The new line carries 240 megawatts, meaning that we are talking about 3 times the capacity of the wooden line. Now, besides it becoming more reliable, it's also becoming with the capacity to carry more electricity. Now, that is one option that Lango has to receive electricity at high voltage. Government went further to implement Karuma and Karuma interconnection projects. Now, with the coming of Karuma meant that Lira or Lango gets an additional supply line on high voltage. For people who have gone to Kamdini, there's a power line running along the road from Lira to Aboke, and then it begins disappearing somewhere. Now that means it's now curving towards Karuma. Now that's the second option we have. Now, if we have only those 2 options, it means that when the eastern option is not there, we get supply from the other option. When the other option is not there, we get supply from this option. So that gives us flexibility to manage faults on the network, but also to allow for maintenance. Anything that you don't maintain breaks down. Your car, even the radio stations you work in, the TVs, you have to set aside some time to make sure that you maintain the equipment, do cleaning of the computers and all the systems. So the 2 lines offered us more flexibility. But government said it's not enough. Let's do something more. Then the project to commission Kole substation. We all know about the substation in Kole, that is here in Aboke. Now that substation is the 3rd option that our region here has. Now there is a project called Kole, Gulu, Nebi, Arua line. Now that project also came and added us capacity, but also gave us the 3rd alternative. Should the other 2 go off, we can get supply from northern Uganda. We talked about Aswa 1 and 2. Aswa is here. Now its power comes to Agago substation, and then from Agago it comes to Gulu. So from Gulu we can feed Lira without the need of Karu, without the need of these other power stations of Naruba, Chira, all these ones. So now we have 3 options, and with generation also available. So in summary, Lango sub-region has Lira substation, which is 40 MVA. 40 MVA is capable of powering, if you know of steel rolling mills, steel rollers are the guys who consume a lot of energy here in Uganda for now, guys who process steel. But this substation alone can do fully established steel rolling mills, about 8 of them. Now, I don't know whether we have any in Lira. The industries we have in Lira are, for now, low consumers. They are not guzzlers, meaning that we have a lot of capacity just within Lira substation alone. But where Lira substation gets overpowered, 2 things can happen. We can upgrade the substation by replacing the transformers with bigger ones. But also, we have an adjacent substation just about 15 kilometers away, which can still be used to power the entire region. So in terms of transmission capacity, we have more than enough. Go out in your media houses and tell whoever cares to listen to bring industries to northern region. We need industries, we need to create jobs, and we need our people to improve their livelihoods. I've spoken about these power lines already. You have the Lira Opuyo Tororo line as one of the options. Then you have the Lira Kole Karuma line as the other option. But also you have the Lira Kole Gulu line as the 3rd option. Of course, in terms of that 3 kV networks, now this is what we call the distribution network, the one that we need in our homesteads. So we have the main lines running out from Lira is Lira Masindi. But now this line doesn't continue to Masindi, it stops in Apache. Masindi is now being fed from Hoima substation and will soon be fed from Karuma substation. Then we have Lira Kitgum. Even Lira Kitgum, the line no longer runs all the way up to Kitgum because Agago substation was commissioned. So this line runs up to somewhere the center before Kilak when you're moving from this side. That's why it stops, then the other substation takes over. So we also have Lira Gulu. This was the main line feeding the entire Acholi sub-region, as in it was feeding Gulu all the way up to Moyo. Now this line has been broken in two pieces because we now have a substation of transmission in Gulu. So Gulu now picks supply from Gulu. That's what all these changes have brought about. Ibrahim talked about generation and everything. Uganda largely relies on hydropower, largely. And the power plants on the River Nile contribute 73%. And then we have small hydropower plants like the ones we have talked about in Pade. Then we also have solar. Currently, we have a solar plant in Soroti, near the substation of Soroti. We have 2 solar plants in Tororo. We have a solar plant in Mayuge. We have one in Gomba, one in Mubende. Then also one is being developed in Madiokolo. Of course, once we are done and dusted with hydropower, I know Ibrahim said we have so many potential, so many sites still left in the Nile, but hydropower is limited. We will exhaust this hydropower and we'll have to take on other generation possibilities, and that's why you see we are now exploring solar as one of the alternatives. Yeah. So then also we have cogeneration. All sugar factories produce sugarcane waste, which can be converted into electricity, and by default in Uganda, just like where sugarcane processing started. It's a must that every sugarcane factory comes with a generation facility. They generate their own electricity from within, utilizing the waste. Now, some of these factories have approached ERA and requested that they can generate in excess of what they need. So ERA gives them licenses to supply the excess electricity to the grid. So we have currently 7% of our supply coming from sugarcane factories. In our region here, the nearest is Kinyara Sugar, but we have Kakira also, Lugazi, and Mayuge Sugar Limited being the main suppliers. So there is this fraction which has a bad color. I would have preferred to make it black. In the next presentation, it will be black. It is called thermal power. It is bad and good. Why? We all know that thermal power is not good for the environment because we are burning fossil fuels. So it's more like a pollutant, but also fuel is very expensive. When you run on thermal power, just like right now, if power goes off in Lira, and if people know that ERA is here, I'm sure they will come and beat us up because they don't want issues of what? They don't want to spend a lot of money on the diesel or on the petrol. So it's expensive. So because of that, we maintain a small fraction of thermal power on the grid. In Uganda, we have only 2 power plants, one in Tororo, one in Namambe. The sole purpose is to ensure that they provide us what we call emergency backup. Should there be a problem in these good generating plants like Nalubale, Chira, Bujagali, should there be a problem, we can switch them on momentarily for a short period of time to ensure that as we fix the problem on the hydropower plants, they support the grid. Then when the problem is fixed, then they can be turned off. Now, you remember in 2020 there was a massive floating island which invaded the Nile plants, and all of them were shut down. We were relying on thermal power to support the grid until when the islands were removed. That's why they're important. Now, Ibrahim talked about demand. Demand has been growing and steadily growing. But we are going to focus on the orange curve. The orange curve represents the consumption in Uganda, excluding exports to neighboring countries. So you find that if we look at the period of 12 years, that's from 2012 up to 2024, our demand has grown from 500 megawatts to 900 megawatts. That is in that period. And steadily, even when you look at the COVID year 2012, we were able to grow. There was a shock for about 2 months, but we went back upwards. Now, when you look at the other curve represents the domestic plus exports. Exports to Kenya, Rwanda, and Tanzania mainly. So you see that even when the upper curve dropped, the lower curve was growing, meaning that our local demand as a country has steadily been growing all through, which is a plus on our side. It means that now we must continue to plan for generation to ensure that at no time does demand outstrip supply again, like it happened back in the time. We talked about transmission network, which has been growing. The new lines on Karuma, the upgraded line here. So from 2005, we had only 1,100 kilometers of transmission network. But as we speak now, as of June, we were at 4,600 kilometers. But the year will close in 2 weeks' time with a new substation and power line in Western Uganda. So this number will go to over 5,000 because we are commissioning Mirama, Kabale line and substation. Customers have been growing. Ibra talked about that, no need to repeat that. We are now at 2.3 million and still growing largely because of government initiatives. So when we extend the grid at high voltage, we also make sure that we focus on distribution. And then initiatives like currently there's the electricity access scale up, which is being implemented where government is connecting people at no cost. You just need to wire your premise and pay for wiring, pay for inspection. If you pass the inspection test, you'll be required to pay 15,000 shillings, which is your initial units, and you get connected, at least up to 1 pole. No pole connection and 1 pole connections. Next. We cannot grow in customer numbers without growing the distribution network. This is largely what we call the wooden network, and now also there's some concrete around. So this network has also grown from 17,000 kilometers to now 67,000 kilometers. It shows how deep we have gone since the reforms were implemented. Now the losses Ibrahim talked about, if we look at 2010, of course the reforms happened around 2000 and the losses were at 36. Now this graph, we truncated and started in 2010 and we had reduced to 30. That means we had already 6% drop. Now these losses continue reducing up to where we are now at about 16. But you see, to drop these losses, it had to be unintentional. It had to be intentional. Now, we, as a regulator, we approved investments for UMEME, for UEDCL, but also for transmission to implement some of the projects that ensure that we reduce the losses. But now when you look at losses, there's a loss that we need to fight, which cannot be just, which is hard to reduce using this engineering innovations that we're talking about. That's the commercial loss. I want us to know, and I want us to take home, that if you see anyone stealing electricity, let's say people tamper meters, people who hook on the power line illegally, please help us report them. But also help us tell them that what they are doing is very bad, because these are the guys who are causing us trouble. You're paying the price you're paying partly because of some of these practices. Now, a 1% drop in energy loss is a saving of about 30 billion shillings. Imagine if we all worked together to ensure that we fight illegal connections, we fight meter tampering, we would reduce the loss and would free or redeem revenues. That would mean that our tariff would come down, because we would all be paying for what we are consuming and not paying for what we are consuming and what others have stolen. Because how the game plays is generators must be paid. When they generate, The meters are at their gates. Transmission buys everything. So if we still, in the process, we still have to what? Pay the other person. That's why we need to fight the price. Do not be excited when you see someone sitting and say, it's not me. No, you're paying for it. Of course, Ibrahim spoke about ERA being responsible for determining tariffs, but also what is key to note is that our tariffs, the methodology of determining tariffs is based on cost, the costs incurred, but also we set tariffs based on time of use. This applies to industries largely. Industries will utilize electricity when the demand is low, let's say between midnight and 6 a.m. pay a lower price than industries who consume electricity at a period when what? At a period when everyone is using electricity. Like let's say in the evening from 6 to midnight. That's when everyone is using electricity. So if an industry is using electricity at that period, they will pay a higher price than if they waited and utilized electricity when the demand is low. So we set tariffs for different customer categories. Now this is also something that Ibrahim spoke about. It is ERA that sets the electricity prices. And tomorrow we are going to hear more about this process. These licenses, generation, transmission, they only submit their requests to ERA. They submit their proposals. And the proposals speak about what they want to do, how much they think it will cost them to do what they want to do to ensure that we receive a reliable supply. Then now, the public is open to critique them in a ceremony like the one happening tomorrow. But also, these applications, normally we publish them 30 days before the public hearing. So you are always free to look through them and make comments. Which some of these comments that you make are very vital and support the process of determination of the tariff. So that's it. So in addition, now we have put in place a number of initiatives, especially to ensure that every Ugandan can benefit from electricity supply. Every Ugandan, whether you are in the village, whether you are poor, whether you are in a semi-urban, you should be able to benefit from electricity. One of the initiatives is what we call the social tariff, what we call the lifeline tariff. Now, ERA approved a tariff of 250 shillings per unit, just 250 shillings per unit, but for the first 15 units that you consume. Now, this tariff is applicable to electricity consumers whose average consumption in the past 6 months does not exceed 100 kilowatts. In other words, if your consumption doesn't exceed 100 units in a month for the past 6 months, you are able to do what? You are able to benefit from these lifeline units. So in other words, at 3,750 shillings, you are able to do what? You are able to have lighting. You are able to charge a phone, and you are able to listen to your radio. But also, ERA is cognizant that there has been a global need to ensure that we protect the environment. We protect the globe generally in terms of natural resources. So, climate change is real. It is ravaging the world. For example, in Uganda, if you go to Rwenzori, there are floods which we never used to experience from the year 2012 up to now. Every year they are coming. They used not to be there. When you come to the north experiences abnormal drought periods nowadays, which were not the case back in the day. Nowadays you hear of flooding in Lake Chioka. This was not the case. Now you hear too much rain is causing floods and displacing massive people, like kilometers and kilometers away from the original lake. So all these things we have to fight them. So this tariff was approved. It's called the cooking tariff. For those who came early, there is a video which played called Fumbi Sayaka. Let's get back our attention. For those who came early, we played a video which was called Fumbi Sayaka. So basically we're saying you can now cook with electricity for a reduced price. In other words, the standard price is about 800 shillings, but you are able to cook with 412 shillings per unit. Now, how does this tariff apply? We are going to break it down in further, in the slides coming down. So basically, this is what happens when the tariff is what? This is what happens when you put in money to buy electricity. I want us to understand this slide because most people ask questions on how do these people give me the units that I receive in any given what? When I pay my money for electricity. Number one is that for every money you tender in to buy electricity, 18% is deducted by URA as taxes. That's VAT. Now, the moment you put in your money, let's say 10,000, URA takes the what? The VAT, which is 18%. So the balance that is left is now where electricity charges begin to apply. For example, for every first purchase of electricity in a month, you pay 3,360 shillings in service fees. And the service fees is to ensure that the utilities are able to maintain the service available, so that as long as and when you need electricity, you're able to switch it on. Then the balance is used to compute the units that you get. Now, I said earlier on, for consumers whose average for the last 6 months is less than 100 units, you receive the 15 units, which are called the lifeline units, charged at 250 shillings each. And then the standard units with the balance of the money, which are charged at 796 for this quarter we are in. This is the umeme tariff for this quarter. But for consumers whose average is over 100 kilowatt hours, if your average is over 100 units in a month, it means that you do not qualify for the lifeline units. You are counted as a person who is able to what? To afford the units. So you don't get this lifeline units, but you benefit directly from the standard units. Now, this is a simplification. We did some math to compute how much you need to benefit from the cooking tariff, because most people have been asking, what is this cooking tariff? Now, if, for example, this month we are in December, you tendered in about 103,000 to umeme, you would qualify. That is if your average consumption doesn't exceed 100 kilowatt hours, you would qualify for the lifeline units. Of course, after the 3,360, which is service fees taken, you qualify for the 15 units of lifeline units at this, and then you get 65 standard units at the approved tariff for that quarter at this. Now, the cooking tariff is applicable from the 81st unit to the 150th unit every month. In other words, if your purchases exceed 80 units in any given month, it doesn't matter how you purchase, even if you put in 10,000, as long as you exceed 80 units in a month, automatically the system will give you 70 up to 70 units at 412 shillings, and this is what you call the cooking tariff. In other words, we are giving you 70 units to cook for the whole month for just 28,000 when they need our support. But now there's going to be a fully fledged power pool which is being finalized, whereby 13 countries, all the way from Egypt up to Tanzania, including Ethiopia, Rwanda, Burundi, talk about Kenya, talk about Sudan and South Sudan, they are coming together to form what we call the Eastern African Power Pool. Now, all these countries are going to be interconnected. Now, when we interconnect, we become a big network. We become a big grid, whereby even if Lake Victoria waters reduce, Uganda can say, hey, Egypt, give us some wind power, and we're able to get power from there. So when we become a very big network, we shall never complain from issues of lack of what? Generation. So we'll be supporting ourselves. Tanzania is very rich in natural gas. They will be producing a lot of electricity from natural gas. So for us, we shall support with our hydro, but we shall be interconnected and make sure that we are on at all times. And then, of course, yeah. REA was mainstreamed back into the ministry. ESCOM Uganda Limited ceased operations last year. They were operating and maintaining Naluba and Shira. Now those plants are back to government of Uganda. Umeme is leaving next year, and UEDCL will take over. UEDCL has already taken over small distribution companies like Parkmex that we know of here. There was Crex in Chegegwa, there's Bex in Bujo, and Kiel in Kasese. All these ones have been taken over, and now when they take over Umeme, they become the nationwide distribution company. We've been talking about these achievements as we went along. We talked about that. Now, challenges. I think I want Kasita to come and speak to us on this one.
Okay. Now we have spoken about achievements. Now we are going to speak about the challenges. And these challenges, it's you, the media, that is going to help us address these challenges. I know that whatever you are going to write, whatever you speak on radio, you will help us address the challenges. One of them is vandalism. We have explained to you that there has been massive investment in ensuring that we put the infrastructure in place. You can see now that the transmission network and the distribution network is crisscrossing across the country, especially across the northern region. However, there are those people who are really vandalizing this infrastructure. It has taken us time, energy, and money to put this infrastructure in place. However, some people have deliberately destroyed this infrastructure. And because of that, we are now seeing unreliable power supply. That is not good for us. And you, the media, you, the eyes and ears of the vulnerable people, we need you to amplify this voice. It's not helping us at all. Our CEO will tell you that it has taken us more than 5 years to develop Karuma hydropower project and its associated infrastructure. But also, it has cost us more than 1.2 billion US dollars. But the vandals will come and bring down the network in a single day. And as you have seen from our presentation, we are saying we have enough power supply that can sustain our economic development. But the vandals are now taking us back where we were. This is a serious issue, and I want you to come and work with us. We have an office here. I want you to always, when you detect this thing, I call upon you to reach us. The numbers, I will tell you the numbers here, so that we address this issue, because it's taking us back to where we were. This is our appeal as ERA. Please, I want us to join hands, because sometimes we become emotional when we talk about this. And infrastructure is being put in place, and you see some people without even shoes climbing there and putting down the towers. One thing that you must know, if one tower is vandalized, it is a network of towers. Because one is in the middle, 3 will go, 3 will go. Those are 6 towers. It takes us time. Engineers have estimated that just to replace a single tower, it costs us more than 400 million or billion, something like that. Sir, is it million? Just to replace one single tower. Billion, million. Just a single tower, it's 400 million. Imagine replacing about 4 or 5 towers. That is something that is really facing us, especially in the lines of Lira Kole and Lira Opuyo. This is our area. I want you, when you speak, when you're on your radio programs, our humble request is, please, keep on speaking about this. Let citizens guard this infrastructure jealously. This is very, very important, because what happens is a vandalized infrastructure takes time and money to replace it. But you as a consumer, it has an impact on your pockets. The tariffs. We shall talk about this tomorrow, about the tariffs, but we need to make sure, and that contributes to losses, energy losses you have had, and you will have to pay for that. Therefore, when you are there in that studio, when you are there, when you host the security teams, I want you to challenge them. Ask them, what have you done to address this? And if you have seen, call citizens, talk to the citizens, tell them, people, it's not good to vandalize the infrastructure because it takes a lot of energy and time to do so. Then we do have vandalism of stay wires. You see, if you go out those poles there, we have a wire. That wire is meant to support that pole. But nowadays we have observed that these stay wires are being vandalized. And these people who vandalize this, they don't stay anywhere. They stay with us. They are sometimes our children, our brothers, our relatives. Let's try to fight this. Let's sit down, we fight this, because you are the eyes and ears of the masses. Am I okay? Let's join, because where we have come from, we have come a long way. After all that massive investments, it's not good for some few individuals who are vandalizing the network. Reliability issues mainly on the UEDCL network due to mainly aged portion of the network. We are cognizant that there are some networks which are old. They were established during the time of UEDCL. Now we as a regulator, we are working with the companies, telling them, please, can we invest into those networks by putting up a new network? Because we need this network to be revamped so that we ensure reliability. And this is why we are always here. We are working. We want to make sure that all areas that have electricity network, they do enjoy uninterrupted power supply. Reliability issues, failures on the wooden transmission infrastructure. My engineer has mentioned that there are some wooden infrastructure that are in place, and sometimes they are in swamps. So when you see some reliability issues, it is because perhaps nature has taken the tall order of this infrastructure. So what we are trying to do, as I will say, we are trying to say that we need to replace this wooden infrastructure with transmission infrastructure. And he has mentioned it when he was presenting things in the network. Therefore, these challenges, the country is faced with increased vandalism of electricity materials, and we need not only the police, we need the media. I need you guys. You know, I used to work for the media. And when I meet colleagues like me, I try to share some of these things with you, because I am like you. I'm saying, you have to produce stories. But imagine someone vandalizing a story. You are in between developing your story and power goes off because a casita somewhere there has vandalized that network. So I want you to really take this personally. Let it be you, because this person is encroaching into your pocket. First of all, you will not get this electricity. Number two, your cost, the price that you're going to pay through the tariffs is going to go high. So kindly, I want you to sit, use our platforms. Our platforms, I know you have a very big social media influence. Sit down and try to advocate for this. We are there to support you wherever. We have a team here, we have a dedicated team that is going to work with you to ensure that we see how we can support you. Now, what has government done? Yes, we have identified this problem. What has government done? Government has introduced strict penalties to ensure that any offender, any culprit found vandalizing the infrastructure, this culprit is taken to a place where they're supposed to be. Now, this, with amendment of the law, section 90 provides that, one, we have people who steal power, people who hook the network, and when they hook the network, they don't want to pay, they were stealing power. So that's theft of power. Remember that all of us, we are contributing to that. Therefore, it is upon us as journalists. I know you guys do investigative journalism. For me, actually, today, I want you to go back. We go to something. Develop that spirit, that mindset of doing investigative journalism. I won awards personally, because I used to be a journalist at New Vision. I won an award of being the best business reporter. Why? Because I did investigative journalism. I want you guys to embed yourself with security. Go and see who are the people contributing to this vandalism. I can say you can come up with a very good story. You see, we have a team here. Embed with our team. Embed with the member team. You EDCL team. Sit down. Tell them where you're going to do your operations. Embed with them. I will tell you, you're going to come up with a big story. Because this vandalism is contributing to our poverty levels. It's contributing to climate change. Okay? Now, the government of Uganda came up with, amended the law that anyone who taps or causes connection for overhead or underground cables, tampers with a meter or a transformer, damages on electricity, an electricity meter or apparatus or equipment, that is an offense. A person is liable to a fine of 20,000 currency points or imprisonment of 10 years or both. So, if you see, I know wherever you move there, if you see someone looping, tapping onto our wires, that person there is committing an offense. And you as a journalist, first of all, you can tell him that by the way what you're doing is wrong. But if you cannot do so, expose that person. Our power is through exposure. What makes a journalist be a journalist is exposure. You expose this person. Don't put your byline there. That's how we used to do things. Don't put your byline there. Just put it there and post it there and leave it there hanging. People who are serious will come to look for that person. Because why? He is interrupting with your financial issues. Because we pay for electricity, isn't it? So let's try to make sure that we stop that. The law also was amended to ensure that a person convicted of an offense under the Act is liable to a fine not exceeding 50,000 currency points, which is almost 1 billion, or imprisonment of 12 years, or both. So if we get this person, and we do have evidence, successfully prosecuted, this person here will have to pay $1 billion Ghana shillings.
The Apache issue was raised by the political leaders. It was also raised by the business community yesterday, at such that Umeme and UDCL responded to. When the line was being constructed by REA, they put a junction before the tee off to Apache. And so every time there is a fault, it gets them off. Now the business community was even asking that junction should be put ahead on the line. It's a design issue. Engineer Peter, you can explain that a little better. Lira Masindi line, vandalism, this is a faulty line that Umeme has also acknowledged. It's problematic, but it is put in line for Umeme, first of all, to do a total overhaul and restoration. Yeah. Then they can start curbing and monitoring vandals very closely. So it's a problem that we know. It's a problem that is known in the sector. It's a very old line. Very old line which has also been made worse by thugs who are vandalizing it every now and then. Karuma Kole Gulunebi, has it changed the tariff since? No. It has not changed it. It's a simple answer. It has not changed the line. Instead, it has changed the reliability and quality of supply. Okay? That is it. Nuclear power plant, yes. Government of Uganda is working at diversifying what they call energy security and build a nuclear power plant. I know that they have acquired land in Wiyende. It was in the news 2 weeks ago or a month ago, something like that, to try to start the process of putting up a nuclear power plant. We all know that's a government of Uganda aspiration. As for when it takes effect, as you don't know, so don't I know. Okay? But it's a government of Uganda aspiration under the Ministry of Energy. When it comes and gets ready for licensing, then that's where we come in as a regulator, to license it and move forward. But for now, it is still a scoping and aspiration time for the government of Uganda. Compensation for former staff of PACMEX. Not just former staff of PACMEX alone. Any employer is responsible for the engagement with their staff.
In engineering, you have 3-phase and single phase. That's why the conductors are 3. It's a 3-phase. Now, each phase cannot come closer to the other. If they do, they create what they call a short circuit. Now, when a short circuit is created, the system has to detect the short circuit and switch off the system. And that will result into an outage. Now, you might be saying, but then why switch off the system? For 2 reasons. If that issue is not cleared or the system is not switched off, there will be a lot of power that will flow through the system, that it will burn the conductor, it will burn the transformers. Matters worse, if it touches the ground, it can conduct and all the surroundings that are metallic will be live. So the system is switched out for 2 reasons. 1 is to protect the system itself. 2, to ensure that there is no loss of life. So it's a good and bad thing. The outage will affect the consumers, but it ensures that next time the equipment is available. Now, the biggest cause or association between the rain and the outages is, number 1, the conductors are bare. If we turn all the entire country into insulated conductors, I can guarantee that you can probably reduce that impact by close to 80%. But guess what? The tariffs will have to go up. So it's a balancing act. The easiest way to do it is to do as much vegetation clearance as possible. Now, the cause is the lines will touch. When they touch, the system must come off fast. Some are auto. It will check whether the cause of the issue has been removed. Say, for example, branch. If the wind blows during the rain mainly and you have a lot of open space, what will happen is that branches can touch the line. Now, when they touch the line, they will create a fault. There is 3 ways in which the line can come off. If 2 conductors touch each other, the line has to come out, for the other reasons I've given. If 3 lines touch each other, the line has to come out. If any of the conductors, for some reason, touches the ground, or touches something that leads it to the ground to make a perfect path for the power, the line has to come out, for the other reasons I told you. So, it's not surprised that during rain you'll have those cases. However, with the time, the utilities will have to continue improving and identify the hot spots. The entire line does not cause the problem, but the hot spots. They will identify them and then either do more vegetation clearance or devise other means, as one of them I've given you. Now, the other cause which I want to tell you is what I think both Casita and Daniel talked about. Vandalism. Those lines, when they are put up, they put what they call stay wire. I think we all know stay wire. Anyone who doesn't know the stay wire, I will tell you why it's called a stay wire. To make sure the pole stays in its place. Doesn't shift a lot. Even when the winds are there, it has to anchor the pole into one place. That's why it's called a stay wire. Stay in the way where I've put you pole, don't move. Now the problem is that when you get vandalism on the network, people steal components of the stay wire. When they steal the components of the stay wire, the structures move from position. Now when they move from position, they compromise other things I told you. One conductor can't come too close to another. 3 conductors, or any of them cannot come closer to the ground. Now you can find the line is leaning. When the line leans, you should be asking maybe the engineers in the room, why are the lines put at 12 meters, 14? The reason is to create enough clearance between the last conductor, okay, and ground. So avoid the other issue I told you, the line cannot touch the ground, or else you have a problem. So when people vandalize the lines by picking components of the steel wires, they compromise the integrity, the structural integrity of the actual line. Now, when the line is leaning and it is raining, the space between the line and the ground. Sorry, I've taken in too much engineering, but you guys asked me for it. But I've tried to tone it down with it. When you see the last conductor at the ground, that space there is not abundant space. That space is creating insulation. That air there creates insulation between the ground and the conductor. Now, the more you reduce that distance, the more you compromise the insulation between the line and the ground. When you compromise insulation between the line and the ground, you will get those problems. Power will want to flow from the conductor to the ground because the distance is so small. And probably you should be maybe thinking, that's why for the big lines, and I've used the word big lines to not bring too much engineering into the room, the lines that are on the pylons, they're even higher. Why? The simple reason is that the voltage, the higher you go in voltage, you need more insulation. Because it is naturally occurring, you can't start no, put the line high. And there actually people are more susceptible to issues when you start to operate under the line. So, rain, outages, those are the typical causes. And you as the colleagues in media, don't draw conclusions that as long as it has rained, I expect an outage. No, now at least I have armed you with some information. You can put it in the reporting language. But they have association, but it doesn't mean that every line is like that. I can ask a simple question. We know the rainy seasons in a year, right? And we know the days. Can someone tell me that from the onset of the rainy season?
How can math be difficult? Let's do some simple math today. If 2 customers walked to, let's say, if 2 customers, let's say, went on their mobile phones and tendered in 10,000 shillings to buy units of electricity at the beginning of a month, it is possible that the 2 customers can get different units. You are all on Umeme, for example, or UEDCL. Both of you are booked with 10,000. It is possible that one gets more units, the other gets a few units. You contribute towards developing Uganda at a rate of 18%. That money is taken away by URA directly from the system of Umeme or UEDCL before it allows the 2 companies now to engage you, to give you the units with the balance. Yes. So, once the 18% is taken away, since it is the first transaction in the month, you'll be charged service fee, which is 3,360. So at that point, all of you are the same. Now, if you are a customer whose average consumption in the past 6 months does not exceed 100 units, involved several poles in the area, But what we request customers to do is that once you report an outage to Umeme, to UEDCL, and they don't respond with a satisfactory answer to you, if like they tell you we are handling and the handling is taking forever, feel free to contact us. We will engage with the distribution company to ascertain exactly what the problem is, because it is your duty. It is the duty of a distribution company to ensure that they give you sufficient information relating to any outage affecting what? The grid. For example, they should be able to tell you that Tesoba is out of supply because of a faulty transformer. We have initiated the process of replacement and it will take, let's say, 2 days, such that you are able to plan. But where they tell you we are working and it takes forever, you don't know what they are working on, you don't even know whether they are working, kindly report such to ERA. Also, just to chip in a little on what Engineer Peter was saying is that you could get low power due to your distance away from the transformer. But it's also possible that your transformer gets overloaded. Once your transformer gets overloaded, it means that at certain times, especially in the evening, when everyone is using electricity, you experience what? Dimming. In that case, UEDCL or Umeme is supposed to consider bringing in a new transformer to support the one which is there, or removing that one and replacing with a bigger capacity transformer. It's something that can be done. So, Lira Masindi line, a lot has been talked about this line. It is an old line, very old. But as we speak now, we can comfortably say that this is a Lira Apache line, because the other side of the Nile is now being fed from Hoima substation. But also very soon, the other side will also be getting supply from Karuma substation. So this Lira Apache line, we know the issues it has. It's an old line. It requires works to be done on it. And there have been discussions. Already some works have been approved for this line. So what we appeal to the public, like again I said earlier on, is that we should be able to report cases of vandalism, or tell our people not to tamper with these lines, because it takes a lot of money and time to come and repair a line. Then tomorrow, or even before the commission, it has been vandalized. So it is one of the things that has been affecting some of these lines. For example, there's a time there was an issue around Maruzi Farm. Is it called Maruzi? Maruzi Farm in Apache. So you find that such scenarios affect what? Affect the delivery of reliable supply. So we will continue to engage with UEDCL and Umeme to ensure that all affected lines are refurbished, to ensure that they deliver supply, but also to provide for alternatives. You heard me talk about alternatives in transmission, that you can get supply from Karuma, you can get from Teso, you can get from Acholi side. We're also working towards ensuring that at distribution level, if I'm in Apache, and let's say Lira Apache line fails, is it possible that there's a line coming from somewhere like Dokolo, somewhere like Loro, feeding that area? It's what we're also working on, to ensure that there are options, so that we can do maintenance, but also we can attend to faults on the line. I think that is all.
You will not be like anyone who has not been in this class. Your questions will be tougher, your observations will be sharper, because you have better information. Now, this thing which keeps disturbing people every time, of I put in 10,000 and I get this units, I put in 10, I get this. Now that is settled. You have a fair understanding. You know that's distorted by two things. Three, it is distorted by tax, VAT, it's distorted by service fee, it's distorted by lifeline tariff. At least that you already know now. If anybody asks you, even if you cannot explain it very well, just tell them no. Those variations is a distortion caused by three things: service fee, VAT tax, and the lifeline tariff. As simple as that. Because those costs have to go off